Millionaire disguised herself as a maid to test her fiancé's family, but what she saw left her in shock. Amanda Farias stood at the edge of the vast entrance of the house, her eyes fixed on the imposing mansion before her. Death Valley blazed relentlessly, its heat a stark contrast to the chill running through her body. She adjusted the modest maid's uniform she wore, the coarse fabric feeling foreign against her skin, accustomed as she was to tailored suits and silk blouses. At 32, Amanda was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the United States, a position she had earned through sheer determination and brilliance. Her success was a testament to her resilience, a quality forged in the crucible of a childhood marked by poverty and struggle. Now, standing before the gates of opulence, she felt an eerie sense of déjà vu, as if the ghosts of her past were whispering in her ear. The reason for her disguise was simple, but the emotions it stirred were anything but. In just a month, she would marry Ricardo Montero, the heir to one of the oldest and wealthiest families in Death Valley. Their whirlwind romance had been the stuff of gossip magazines, the tech magnate and the charming heir. But as the wedding day approached, a persistent doubt had taken root in Amanda's mind. She remembered the conversation that had led her to this moment. It was a warm night, the kind that invited confidences, and she found herself pouring her heart out to her closest friend and confidant, Luisa. "I love Ricardo, I really do," Amanda had said, swirling the wine in her glass. "But his family, there's something about them that unsettles me." Luisa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Amanda sighed, struggling to articulate her concerns. "It's the way they look at people who aren't part of their world. The subtle dismissals, the condescension barely hidden behind polite smiles. I've seen it before, Luisa. I've been on the receiving end of those looks." "And you're worried about how they really see you?" Luisa asked, her voice gentle. Amanda nodded. "I need to know who they really are when the masks come off, when they think no one important is watching." It was Luisa who had suggested the unconventional plan. "Then why not give them someone unimportant to watch?" she said, with a mischievous gleam in her eye. "Someone like a new maid, perhaps?" The idea took shape, evolving from a whimsical notion to a concrete plan. And now, there she was, about to take on a role she had lived before, but in a world that was supposed to be her future. Taking a deep breath, Amanda smoothed her uniform one last time and walked to the imposing front door. She rang the bell, her heart pounding in her chest. As she waited, she couldn't help but wonder if she was making a mistake. Was this deception worth risking her relationship? But the need to know, to truly understand the family she was about to join, outweighed her doubts. The door opened, revealing a stern-faced woman in her 60s. This must be Marcia, Ricardo's mother, Amanda thought. She had met the woman before, of course, but always as Amanda, the CEO, never as an unnamed maid. "You must be the new employee," Marcia said, her eyes scanning Amanda with barely concealed disdain. "Come in and don't dirty the marble." Amanda stepped inside, her eyes widening despite herself at the opulence of the entryway. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceilings, their light dancing on polished surfaces and gilded frames. It was a world very different from the modest apartment she shared with Ricardo, a place she had insisted on keeping despite his offers to move into a more suitable residence. "I'm Amanda," she said, forcing her voice into a more humble tone than she was used to. "I'm here to start the job as requested." Marcia's lips tightened. "Very well. Follow me to the kitchen. I'll have Camilla show you the ropes." She turned on her heel, not bothering to check if Amanda was following. As they walked through the house, Amanda couldn't help but notice how Marcia's eyes constantly scanned for imperfections, her fingers occasionally brushing away imaginary dust. It was as if the very idea of dirt offended her on a personal level. In the kitchen, they found a young woman vigorously scrubbing a copper pot. She looked up when they entered, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of Amanda. "Camilla," Marcia said, her tone sharp. "This is the new maid. Show her what needs to be done and make sure she doesn't break anything valuable." With that, she left the kitchen, leaving Amanda alone with Camilla. The young woman set down the sponge and wiped her hands on her apron. "Hello," she said, offering a small smile. "I'm Camila. Welcome to the Montero house." Amanda returned the smile, feeling a genuine sympathy for this woman who, unlike Marcia, seemed to see her as a person and not as an inconvenience. "Thank you, Camila. I'm Amanda. I appreciate your help." As Camilla began to show Amanda around the kitchen, explaining the family's exacting standards and complex schedules, Amanda's mind spun. She had expected some level of arrogance, but the casual disdain she received from Marcia was beyond what she had anticipated. Was this how they treated all their staff? And more importantly, would they treat her this way if she hadn't arrived in their lives as a successful CEO? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching the kitchen. Moments later, a tall, distinguished man in his 60s entered. Amanda recognized him immediately as Carlos, Ricardo's father. She had met him several times at charity galas and family dinners, where he had always been polite, though somewhat reserved. "Ah, you must be the new maid," Carlos said, his eyes barely registering Amanda's presence. "I trust Marcia made it clear that we expect nothing less than the best in this house." Amanda nodded, keeping her eyes down as she imagined a nervous new employee would. "Yes, sir. I understand." Carlos grunted, apparently satisfied with her deference. "Good. Remember this. We have important guests coming this weekend and everything must be perfect." He turned to Camila. "And you? Make sure she doesn't make any mistakes. I don't want our reputation tainted by incompetence." As Carlos left the kitchen, Amanda felt a surge of anger. The man she had known at the galas, who spoke of philanthropy and social responsibility, seemed a world away from the imposing figure he was now. Camilla sighed softly beside her. "Don't take it personally," she said in a low voice. "They're always like this before big events. The pressure seems to get to them." Amanda nodded, unable to trust her voice to speak. She had come here seeking answers, and she was already finding them. But they were answers that filled her heart with a deep unease. As the day wore on, Amanda threw herself into the work, determined to keep up her disguise. She scrubbed floors, polished silver, and dusted priceless artwork, all under Marcia's critical gaze, which seemed to find fault with everything she did. "No, no, no!" Marcia exclaimed, clear exasperation in her voice when Amanda finished arranging a vase of flowers. "The roses should be more prominent. Don't you have any sense of aesthetics?" Amanda bit her tongue, resisting the urge to point out that she had personally overseen the interior design of her company's headquarters, a project that had won several awards. Instead, she murmured an apology and rearranged the flowers according to Marcia's specifications. As evening approached, Amanda found herself in the library, dusting the shelves of leather-bound books. She couldn't help but run her fingers along the spines, recognizing titles she had read and loved. It was here that Carlos found her, a glass of whiskey in hand. "Be careful with those books," he said brusquely, making Amanda jump. "Some of these are first editions worth more than you'd earn in a year." Amanda turned, an apology on her lips when she saw Carlos's eyes narrow. For a heart-stopping moment, she feared he had recognized her, but his next words dispelled that notion. "You seem educated," he said, suspicion tinging his tone. "Where did you say you were from?" Amanda's mind raced. I studied at the public library in my free time, sir," she said, the lie slipping easily from her lips. "I've always loved reading." Carlos's face relaxed, but the condescension in his voice was unmistakable. "Ah, I see. Well, it's nice to see some of you trying to improve yourselves, though I doubt you understand half of what's in those books." As he left the library, Amanda leaned against the bookshelf, her heart racing. The casual cruelty of his words, the assumption that someone of her perceived status couldn't comprehend literature, cut deep. It brought back memories of her childhood, of being told she would never go anywhere because of where she came from. But more than that, it solidified her resolve. She had come here seeking the truth about Ricardo's family, and she was finding it. The question was, what would she do with that knowledge? As she made her way back to the kitchen, Amanda overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. Marcia was on the phone, her voice carrying clearly through the open door of her office. "Yes, of course, we're looking forward to the event," Marcia said, her voice smooth and practiced. "But we're also making sure that our new staff understands their place." Amanda froze, her hand gripping the doorframe. The words were a chilling reminder of why she had come, why she needed to see the truth for herself. The evening passed in a blur of cleaning and preparation. Exhausted but determined, Amanda finally had a moment to herself in the small maid's quarters. She sat on the narrow bed, her mind racing with thoughts of the day's revelations. Her heart was heavy with the realization that the family she was about to join was everything she had feared. Their attitudes, their disregard for those they deemed beneath them, were a stark contrast to the man she loved. But she had seen enough to understand that Ricardo's family was not just an obstacle. They were a reflection of values that could not be ignored. As Amanda prepared for bed, she knew she had to confront Ricardo with what she had discovered. The love she had for him was real, but so was her sense of self-respect. She couldn't ignore the glaring truths that had come to light. She had embarked on this journey to test the family's true colors, and what she found was a harsh reminder of the inequalities she had fought so hard to overcome. The decision she faced now was the most difficult of all. Could she reconcile the man she loved with the family he came from, or would this revelation drive a wedge too deep to repair? As she closed her eyes, the weight of the day pressed heavily on her. The future of her relationship and perhaps her own sense of identity hung in the balance. With dawn over Death Valley, Amanda rose early, her heart heavy with anticipation. Today was the day Ricardo would return, and with him, the moment of truth she both longed for and feared. She donned the maid's uniform one last time, preparing for the confrontation ahead. The Montero house was bustling. Marcia was darting around, issuing orders and fussing over every detail of Ricardo's welcome luncheon. Amanda found herself amidst the preparations, chopping vegetables in the kitchen alongside Camila. "You seem tense today," Camila remarked quietly. "Is everything okay?" Amanda forced a small smile. "Just nervous about meeting the young master, I suppose," she lied, feeling a pang of guilt for deceiving her new friend. As the morning wore on, Amanda's anxiety grew. She had rehearsed countless scenarios in her mind, but none seemed fitting for the magnitude of what was about to unfold. Would Ricardo understand her motives? Or would he see her actions as a betrayal of trust? The sound of a car pulling into the driveway startled the house. Marcia rushed to the entrance hall, calling for Carlos to join her. Amanda stood aside, her heart pounding as she heard the front door open, and Ricardo's familiar voice filled the air. "Mom, Dad, it's so good to see you." Ricardo's warm tones echoed through the house. Amanda closed her eyes, savoring the sound of his voice, even as she braced herself for what was to come. "Darling, we've missed you so much," Marcia cooed. "Come, sit down. Lunch is almost ready. We have a new maid, you know. She's a bit slow, but she manages." Amanda felt her cheeks flush with Marcia's casual disdain. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a tray of appetizers and made her way to the dining room. Entering, Ricardo had his back to her, focused on his parents. Carlos was in the middle of a humorous anecdote, gesticulating grandly. And then I said to him, "My good man, do you know who I am?" Carlos laughed. "You should have seen his face when he realized. People need to learn their place, I say." Amanda's hands tightened around the tray. This was the pivotal moment. "Your appetizers, sir," she said, her voice clear and strong. Nothing like the humble tone she had adopted throughout the week. Ricardo turned, a polite smile on his face that quickly turned to shock as he recognized her. "Amanda? What are you doing here? In that uniform?" The room fell silent. Marcia's mouth hung open in disbelief, while Carlos's face reddened with anger. Amanda placed the tray down carefully before straightening, shedding the submissive posture of a maid. In its place stood the confident CEO, with a steady gaze as she faced the astonished family. "I think we need to talk," she said softly, her eyes locked on Ricardo's. "What does this mean?" roared Carlos, rising from his chair. How dare you deceive us like this? Marcia's shock gave way to indignation. I knew there was something off about you. No wonder you were so incompetent. Ricardo raised a hand, silencing his parents. His face was a mask of confusion and pain. Amanda, please, explain. Taking a deep breath, Amanda began. I came here because I needed to know the truth about how your family treats those it considers inferior. People like me before I achieve success. She turned to Marcia and Carlos. Over the past week, I've been subjected to your disdain, your casual cruelty, your utter disregard for the humanity of those you employ. And I've seen how you treat Camila and the other staff with the same contempt. Ricardo's face fell as the implications of her words sank in. But why didn't you ask me directly? Why go to these extremes? Amanda's voice softened as she addressed him. Because I needed to see with my own eyes, Ricardo. I needed to know if the family I was marrying into was truly as kind and philanthropic as it presented itself, or if it was all just a facade. Carlos, recovering from his initial shock, stepped forward threateningly. Now listen here, young lady. You have no right to judge us. We worked hard to earn everything we have. Just as I did, Amanda shot back, standing her ground. And just like every person you belittle, the only difference is the circumstances of our birth. At that moment, Camila entered the room, freezing upon seeing the tense scene before her. Amanda's heart ached for her friend, knowing that the young woman's future depended on this confrontation too. Camila, Amanda said gently, I'm sorry for deceiving you. You've been a true friend this past week, and you deserve more than the treatment you receive here. Camila's eyes widened as she recognized Amanda. You're Mr. Ricardo's fiancé? The CEO? Amanda nodded, then turned back to the Montero family. This is the reality of your home. The people you employ, the people you claim to help through your charity galas, are not faceless entities. They are human beings with dreams, aspirations, and dignity. Ricardo, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. His voice was laden with emotion. I didn't know. I never paid attention to how the staff was treated. I just assumed. That's the problem, isn't it? Amanda said softly. We assume. We become blind to the realities of those around us. But it's time to open our eyes. Marcia, her face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment, tried to regain control of the situation. This is absurd. You can't possibly understand our position. We have a reputation to uphold, standards to maintain. And do those standards include treating people as less than human? Amanda challenged. Is this the legacy you want to leave? The values you want to impart? A heavy silence fell over the room. The weight of Amanda's words seemed to press down on everyone, forcing an uncomfortable moment of introspection. It was Carlos who broke the silence, his voice rough but devoid of the previous anger. You've made your point, Mrs. Farias. Quite effectively, I might add. But what do you expect to happen with this charade of yours? Amanda paused to gather her thoughts. This was the crucial moment, the opportunity to transform this confrontation into something constructive. I expect change, she said firmly. Not just in words or empty promises, but in actions. I want to see a genuine effort to treat all people, regardless of their status or background, with respect and dignity. She turned to Ricardo, her eyes softening. And I want to know if the man I fell in love with, the man who spoke so passionately about making a difference in the world, is willing to join me in bringing about this change. Ricardo's face was a storm of emotions, pain, confusion, but also growing understanding. He stepped forward, taking Amanda's hands in his. I'm sorry, he said, his voice almost a whisper. I'm sorry for never seeing what was happening in my own home. You're right, we need to do better. I need to do better. He turned to his parents, his posture straightening with determination. Mom, Dad, Amanda is right. We can't continue like this. Our privilege doesn't give us the right to treat others as inferior. Marcia opened her mouth to protest, but Carlos placed a hand on her arm, silencing her. His face had lost some of its earlier hostility, replaced by a thoughtful expression. Maybe, he said slowly. We've become complacent in our position. It's been a long time since any of us had to see the world from a different perspective. Amanda felt a spark of hope with his words. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was an opening, an opportunity for growth and change. I propose that we start over, she said, addressing everyone in the room. Not as employers and employees, not as people from different social positions, but as human beings, equal in our humanity, if not in our circumstances. She turned to Camilla, who had watched the exchange with wide eyes. Camilla, would you be willing to share your experiences with us, to help us understand how we can do better? Camilla hesitated, her eyes nervously shifting between Amanda and the Monteros. But then she straightened, a spark of determination in her eyes. Yes, she said firmly. Yes, I would. As everyone moved to sit at the dining table, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The tension was still there, but now it was tempered with a sense of possibility. Amanda knew this was just the beginning, that real change would require ongoing effort and uncomfortable conversations. But looking at the faces of her future family, at Ricardo's hand firmly entwined with hers, and at Camilla's hesitant smile, she felt a wave of hope. This was why she had embarked on this risky endeavor, not just to expose the truth, but to pave the way for a better future. As Camilla began to speak, her voice gaining strength as she shared her story, Amanda silently renewed her commitment. To her roots, to her principles, and to the belief that even in the face of entrenched prejudice and social disparity, change was possible. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but as she listened to the conversation unfold, Amanda knew that this moment, this difficult, honest, and transformative moment, was the first step toward the kind of world she had always dreamed of building. As Camilla's story unfolded, the Montero family listened with a mix of discomfort and growing understanding. She spoke of long hours, of feeling invisible, of dreams deferred due to financial constraints. With each word, the chasm between their worlds became more apparent, but so did their shared humanity. Ricardo, his face marked by concern, was the first to speak after Camilla finished. I had no idea, he said softly. All these years, and I never really saw. I'm sorry, Camilla. Marcia, who had been unusually quiet, cleared her throat. I suppose I've been rather harsh, she admitted, her voice lacking its usual arrogance. It never occurred to me that you had aspirations beyond service. Carlos nodded slowly, his earlier anger replaced by a thoughtful expression. It seems we've been living in a bubble, he pondered. Maybe it's time to burst it. Amanda felt a wave of hope with his words. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was a start. Thank you for sharing, Camilla, she said warmly. Your courage is admirable. Turning to the Monteros, Amanda continued. This is an opportunity for real change, not just in how you treat your employees, but in how you see the world. Your influence extends far beyond this house. Imagine the impact you could have if you use that influence to promote equality and respect for everyone. Ricardo squeezed Amanda's hand, a determined look in his eyes. You're right. We have a responsibility to do better, to be better. But where do we start? Amanda smiled, her mind already racing with possibilities. We start right here, with concrete actions. First, let's review the working conditions and compensation for all employees. Make sure they are not just fair, but generous. Carlos nodded, a glimmer of his business acumen emerging. I agree. We should also look at providing opportunities for advancement and education. Exactly, Amanda said, her excitement growing. Camilla, didn't you mention wanting to attend university? Camilla's eyes widened. Yes, but I could never afford. Let's create a scholarship program, Marcia interjected, surprising everyone. For all our employees and their families, it's the least we can do. As the ideas flowed, Amanda felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This was more than she had dared hope for when she first donned her maid's uniform. But there was still a crucial conversation to be had. As the discussion wound down, she turned to Ricardo. "Can we talk privately?" He nodded, leading her to his office. As the door closed behind them, Ricardo's composed facade crumbled. "Amanda, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what was happening. I should have known." Amanda placed a finger over his lips, silencing him. "You're right. You should have. But what matters is that you're willing to learn and change. That's why I fell in love with you, Ricardo. Your capacity for growth, your desire to make a difference." Ricardo held Amanda's hands, his eyes searching her face. "But can you forgive me? Can you still trust me after all this?" Amanda took a deep breath. "I won't lie. This past week has been eye-opening and at times painful. But I didn't do this to test you, Ricardo. I did it because I believed in you, in us. I needed to know if the man I loved could join me in fighting for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable." A tear rolled down Ricardo's face. "And what did you conclude?" She smiled, gently wiping his tear away. "I concluded that you are exactly the man I thought you were. Imperfect, yes, but with a good heart and the courage to face hard truths. I love you, Ricardo Montero, and if you still want me, I would be proud to be your wife." Ricardo pulled her into a tight embrace. "Oh, Amanda," he whispered into her hair. "I love you too, more than ever, and I promise we will face this journey of change together." As they held each other, Amanda felt a sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Changing entrenched behaviors and perspectives would take time and effort. There would be setbacks and difficult conversations, but as they joined the others hand in hand, Amanda knew they were on the right path. She watched as Marcia, awkward but sincere, offered a cup of tea to Camilla, while Carlos engaged in a thoughtful discussion about fair wages with another team member who had joined them. This was just the beginning, but it was a powerful start. A moment of transformation that promised to extend far beyond the walls of that mansion. As the afternoon progressed, plans were made, commitments were taken, and a new understanding began to take root. Amanda found herself at the center of it all, guiding discussions, offering insights from her own journey from poverty to success. By evening, the atmosphere in the Montero house had changed drastically. There was a new sense of unity, of shared purpose. As the team prepared to leave work, there were smiles and warm farewells where once there had been only dry nods. Camila stayed a bit longer, catching Amanda's eye. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing us, for making them see us." Amanda hugged her friend tightly. "No, thank you, Camilla. Your strength and dignity in the face of everything. You're the real heroine here." As Camilla left, Amanda felt Ricardo's arm wrap around her waist. "You know," he said with a hint of amusement in his voice, "when I imagined introducing my fiancé to my family, I didn't think it would be like this." Amanda laughed, the sound light and free. "Well, I've always believed in making a memorable first impression." Carlos approached, his usually imposing presence softened by the day's events. "Amanda," he said, his voice rough but sincere, "I owe you an apology. Your methods were unconventional, to say the least, but your intentions were pure. You've opened our eyes to a reality we've been intentionally ignoring for too long." Marcia joined them, nodding. "We have a lot of work to do," she admitted, "but I believe we're ready for the challenge. That is, if you're willing to help us guide." Amanda felt a lump in her throat. This was more than she had dared hope for. "I'd be honored," she said, her voice choked with emotion. As they stood there, this new family united in purpose, Amanda felt a sense of rightness settle in. She thought of her own family, the struggles they had faced, the dreams they had nurtured. She could hardly wait to tell them about this day, to show that change was possible, that bridges could be built over chasms of class and privilege. Later that night, as she lay in bed next to Ricardo, Amanda reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the slums to the boardroom and now to this moment of transformation. She had taken a risk that could have cost her everything, but in doing so, she had not only secured her own future, but potentially change the lives of many others. As she fell asleep, Amanda's last thoughts were about the future, a future where people like Amanda Farias and Camilla would be seen, heard, and valued, a future she was now empowered to help create. In the soft moonlight filtering through the window, Amanda smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for growth and change. But for now, she was content knowing that sometimes the greatest transformations begin with a simple disguise and the courage to seek the truth. As the weeks passed, the Montero house underwent a remarkable transformation. The initial shock and discomfort of that fateful day gave way to a period of genuine introspection and change. Amanda found herself at the heart of this evolution, guiding the family with a blend of firmness and compassion. On a sunny morning, Amanda was in the garden with Marcia, having tea and discussing the progress of the newly implemented employee development program. The older woman had surprised everyone with her enthusiasm in embracing the changes, diving headfirst into the task of improving relations with the team. "You know," Marcia said, with a tone of admiration in her voice, "I never realized how much talent we had right under our noses. Did you know João from maintenance is a brilliant artist? We're organizing a staff art exhibition next month." Amanda smiled, recalling the shy man who had shown his sketches during one of the new weekly meetings. "That's wonderful, Marcia. It's amazing what can happen when we take the time to truly see people." As they spoke, Carlos appeared, waving an animated newspaper. "Did you see this?" he asked, handing the paper to them. "Our scholarship program made the front page." Amanda took the newspaper, her heart swelling with pride as she read the headline, "Montero Family Launches Innovative Education Initiative for Domestic Workers." The article detailed how the family's program was already inspiring other wealthy families to follow suit. "This is just the beginning," Carlos said, his eyes shining with a new sense of purpose. "I've been talking to some of my associates about implementing similar programs in their companies. We could really make a difference on a larger scale." Amanda nodded, feeling a surge of hope. This was the domino effect she had envisioned, the potential for widespread change that had motivated her to take such a risk in the first place. As the day went on, Amanda found herself in Ricardo's office reviewing plans for the upcoming wedding. But this wouldn't be a typical high society wedding. They had decided to use the event as a platform to raise awareness about workers' rights and social equality. "I've been thinking," Ricardo said, looking at the guest list. "What if we ask Camilla to be one of your bridesmaids? It would send a powerful message about breaking social barriers." Amanda's heart filled with love for this man who had grown so much in such a short time. "That's a wonderful idea," she said, leaning in to kiss him softly. "I'll ask her tomorrow." Later that night, as the house gathered for dinner, a new tradition that included all the team members, Amanda looked around the table with a sense of awe. Camilla was sitting next to Marcia, animatedly discussing her university applications. Carlos was deep in conversation with the gardener about sustainable landscaping practices. And Ricardo, her beloved Ricardo, was making sure everyone felt included and valued. As she watched this scene, Amanda felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Maria, the elderly cook who had been with the family for decades, looking at her with tear-filled eyes. "Miss Amanda," Maria said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, "I just wanted to thank you. In all my years here, I never thought I'd see a day like this. You've brought light to this house." Amanda felt her own eyes well up with tears as she embraced the older woman. "We all brought light, Maria. Each one of us." As dinner progressed, Amanda found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The risks she had taken, the truths she had uncovered, the changes she had catalyzed. It all seemed almost surreal now. But reality was right there, in that room filled with laughter and warmth, where class and status barriers had crumbled in the face of shared humanity. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were still moments of tension, old habits that were hard to break. But the willingness to learn, grow, and see each other as equals, that was the true victory. After dinner, Amanda stepped out onto the porch, needing a moment to process the emotions of the day. She gazed at the twinkling lights of Death Valley, the city where she had fought so hard to make her mark. She felt Ricardo's presence before she heard him, a warm comfort at her back. "Thinking about something?" he asked, wrapping her in his arms. Amanda leaned into his embrace. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," she said softly, "and how much still lies ahead." Ricardo nodded, resting his chin on her shoulder. "It's a long road ahead," he agreed. "But I'm grateful to be walking it with you." As they stood there, looking out at the city they both loved, Amanda felt a sense of peace settle in. The journey that had started with a maid's uniform and an audacious plan had led to this moment of profound change and connection. She thought about her own family, the struggles they had faced, the dreams they had nurtured. She thought of Camila and the other team members, their lives opening up to new possibilities. She thought of the Monteros, learning to see the world with new eyes. And she thought of herself, the girl from the slums who had refused to be defined by her circumstances, who had risked everything for a chance at true understanding and change. As the night deepened around them, Amanda turned in Ricardo's arms, looking at the face of the man she loved. "You know," she said with a smile on her lips, "I think maybe we can change the world." As the weeks passed, the atmosphere in the Montero household grew more intense with change. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, and Amanda found herself at the center of a transformation that exceeded her expectations. The reforms in employee treatment were in full swing, and the scholarship program was receiving significant recognition. Amanda and Ricardo were intensely dedicated to these efforts. Together, they attended meetings with other business leaders and community figures, promoting the Equality Initiative and demonstrating how change was possible. But amid the progress, there were also moments of tension and doubt. One afternoon, while Amanda was reviewing documents with Camila, Marcia approached with a worried expression. "Amanda, can we talk for a minute?" Amanda nodded, and the two withdrew to a more private corner of the house. Marcia seemed hesitant, her eyes full of apprehension. I've been feeling a bit out of place with all this change," Marcia admitted. "I've tried my best, but I still have doubts about whether I'm really helping. I feel like I might just be going along with the flow." Amanda placed a hand on Marcia's shoulder, a gesture of support and understanding. "Marcia, you're doing more than you realize. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it's normal to feel unsure. What's important is that you're here, learning and trying. Your willingness to confront your own biases is a big part of this process." Marcia smiled, her eyes a bit clearer. "Thank you, Amanda. Sometimes I just need a reminder that we're all in this together." Meanwhile, Ricardo was struggling to balance his new leadership role with his personal life. The pressure to ensure the transformation was successful was beginning to take a toll on his health. Amanda noticed the growing strain and decided to take action. One night after a particularly exhausting day, Amanda found Ricardo in his office looking drained. "You need a break," Amanda said, taking a seat next to him. "We can't help others if we don't take care of ourselves." Ricardo looked at her, a mix of gratitude and fatigue on his face. "I know, Amanda. I don't want to fail now, not when we're so close to making a difference." "We are making a difference, Ricardo. Every step we take, no matter how small, is changing lives. We'll handle it together, just like we always have." Ricardo smiled, feeling reassured. "Thank you. I'll try to be more mindful about it." As the wedding approached, the atmosphere in the Montero house was a mix of excitement and nervousness. Amanda and Ricardo were organizing an event that would be both a celebration and a platform for their cause. The house was in a frenzy, preparations in full swing. Amanda was in the garden, helping to arrange the tables, when Camila approached with a nervous smile. "Amanda, I wanted to thank you again. Your support and actions have done more for me and my family than I ever imagined." Amanda embraced Camila warmly. "You deserve this and much more, Camila. Your strength and dignity have been inspiring to all of us." Camila looked at the house, hope shining in her eyes. I just hope the changes continue after the wedding. That it's not just an event but a real turning point. Ricardo, Amanda began, her voice firm and clear. I promise to love and respect you, not just in happy times but also through the challenges we face. I promise that we will continue to fight together for a more just and inclusive world. With you, I have discovered the true meaning of change and hope. Ricardo smiled, tears welling in his eyes. Amanda, I promise to stand by your side every step of this journey. You have taught me to see the world in a new way and to seek the truth no matter how difficult it may be. Together we will make our love a force for transformation. After the vows, the couple kissed, sealing their promise with a gesture of love. Applauded by guests that included friends and family from all segments of society, the ceremony was a testament to the power of change and the impact that a single act of courage can have. That evening, during the reception, Amanda stood to give a speech. The room was filled with familiar faces, some still shining with the light of emotion. She took a deep breath, looking at Ricardo, and then at everyone present. Dear friends and family, Amanda began, her voice heavy with emotion. Today is a celebration not only of our love but of a journey that began with a difficult and courageous choice. When I started this journey, the goal was simple: to see if there was a way to bridge our worlds and build something better. She paused, looking at Camila, Marcia, and Carlos, all smiling with pride. I've discovered that by facing ourselves with truth and empathy, we can transform not just our own lives, but the lives of those around us. The changes we see today, in the treatment of our staff, in the opportunities we're creating, are just the beginning. Amanda smiled, her eyes sparkling with tears of joy. The true power of change lies in each of us. It's about the courage to confront our own biases, to stand up for those who have no voice, and to work together to create a world where everyone is valued and respected. She turned to Ricardo, holding his hand firmly. Ricardo, you have been my partner in all of this. Together we've built a path of hope and transformation. And the promise I make to you today is that we will continue to fight for a world where love and justice prevail. The room erupted in applause, and the guests stood, clapping and celebrating the new chapter in Amanda and Ricardo's lives. The atmosphere was one of celebration, but also of deep reflection and renewed commitment. As the night went on, Amanda and Ricardo danced together under the stars, surrounded by the warmth of newfound understanding and the support of those around them. It was a night of celebration, but also a reminder that the journey of change and growth never ends. Amanda looked at Ricardo and then at the vast, starry night above. With a peaceful smile and a heart full of hope, she knew that the real work was just beginning. But with love, courage, and the promise of a better future, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And so, with every step they took together, Amanda and Ricardo built a legacy of love and transformation, lighting the way to a more just and inclusive future. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments which part moved you the most. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new exciting stories and click on the card to continue enjoying more stories. See you in the next video.